would like to start with a question. Has anybody been to Estonia? Oh, wonderful. Well, Estonia is not such a travel destination as Porto, for example. You have all the sun and people know how to enjoy life and plenty of wine. Estonia is so much in the north. We have a lot of cold in wintertime and dark days, and so it's quite depressing. And Estonians as such would not think of themselves as people who are good at anything. We are quite humble, and we live according to the definition that it could always be better. One of the favorite words in Estonian is muretsema, which means to be worried about things. So we're worried about everything. We're worried about getting bread on the table, and we're worried about how we're doing. So the first time we participated in PISA in 2006, and the results came out, we were very surprised. How is that possible? Estonians are not good at anything. So, in other words, it was a PISA shock in a positive way. And the first decision was, this must have been a happy accident. But time went on, and we repeated that. And by now, it's already sort of a national pride, and we are doing quite well in PISA, so how much have we fallen? So that's usually the question. But how did we get there? Let's look at this slide, and this is one and the only slide I have. We do have the education policy line here. So we believe in education as in evolution, not in revolution. So in other words, if you set an education policy, and we had a good starting point in the beginning of 90s, and I will tell you why, then the education evolves. It has been amazing for me to listen to all these presentations this morning because I can hear how things change very rapidly with a new minister. It would not be quite possible with us because people have a say. So if a Minister of Education decides, let's cancel all the examinations, the teachers will not agree with that. And you, as a minister, you have to listen to your teachers. And so in that sense, there is maybe this different mentality. But let's go back and see how we got there. From the history lesson, a very quick history lesson, Estonia was part of the Soviet Union, which was not a happy part of our history. We never wanted to be there, but the history was there, and that's why we are very vocal at the moment against everything what Russia is doing in Ukraine, because we do not want to repeat anything like that, what was at that time. But at the beginning of 90s, 91, was the day when we broke off and we could restore our independence, and Estonia was an independent country from 1918 until 1940 when Russia occupied us. And before this break-off happened, there was a huge discussion in the society. And what do you think? Which part of the nation participated in this discussion? These were the teachers, educators, university professors, everybody. What sort of education would we like for our country? Because we do not want a Soviet person. We want a free thinking person, and we need to have our own education. So at the end of 80s, there was a discussion, big public discussion. Let's form the ideas, the goals, what sort of person we want to have, and so there was a teachers' congress, and so as a result, they did set all the values, the things that we want to know, want to have, and now let's look at the timeline that we have. In 1992, we made a law on education, which stated that each citizen in Estonia, each young person has the right to have a free, high-quality education according to best possible needs for each child as possible. So that's where we set the standards. In 1996, we adopted the first curriculum, and Estonian curriculum consists of 2 parts. One is the general part, which describes what kind of person we want to have, what are the competencies that they should have, what kind of values should we put in all the lessons. And the second part was dealing with each of the subjects and stating the learning outcomes that we need to have for each, that we as a nation want each of the students to master. So learning outcomes and competencies, both of these things together. It was 1996, so every 10 years or so, we update our national curriculum. We introduce more of these transversal skills. For example, there came in a digital competence. Digital competence is something that should be part of every subject, not only an ICT lesson, because you need to be digital in mathematics, in reading, and in physical education, by the way. Who is counting your steps? So we had these updates, and every 10 years or so. In 1996, it was an interesting year as well that our former president said that, well, the nation should be digitalized. That means all schools got internet connections, many thousands of teachers got trainings. The public libraries were provided with Wi-Fi's, because the retired people, everybody needs to be able to be a digital person to understand what is going on. So we called it a tiger leap. And so since then, we have been jumping further on and developing this part of digital world as well. And 1997 was another big step. We introduced external evaluation. And before external evaluation, we had school autonomy and then external evaluation. School autonomy was introduced because who likes to be free? Schools are also institutions that like to have their own culture, their own ways of thinking. So the schools in Estonia the principals can hire and fire the teachers. They can decide what sort of culture would you like to have. About 75% from the national curricula you're supposed to apply in your school, but the main document on which you study or follow at school is the school curriculum. So you have about 25% of free space, so to say, to introduce what kind of school would you like. Would you like to have more language lessons? Would you like to have more mathematics or more art? So it's up to the school. And let's go back further to 97, when we introduced the external evaluation. And so if somebody is autonomous and free and you can do things kind of how you want, you can, how do you say, use it or abuse it. So you can enjoy your freedom and you can teach ancient Greek for all the time and you'll just have fun. But if a national curriculum says that these are the learning outcomes we want our citizens to have, so the state has the right to go in and see, have we mastered those learning outcomes? And so that's why we introduced these national low-stakes tests for grades 4 and 7 to check how they are doing at different levels of studies, and high-stakes tests or examinations at the grades of 9 and 12. Plus, grade 12 is also the entrance examination for the, or it can be used for getting into universities as well. Right, so these have been the basic principles, and by the time we get to PISA in 2006, we see the results. Our students have seen the national tests in between. We never had the tests in the style of like multiple choice or something. We always had them with open-ended responses. You had to like write and express our things. And so those were the results. Then as we move on, let's talk about 2014. We had a document called National Lifelong Learning Strategy for 2020. And that was a good document because we had the chance to get a lot of money from European Union, because once you have a good document and you put the learning outcomes and all you want to achieve, so we got a lot of money for teacher training, for more digitalization of the society, for lifelong learning. So in other words, write good documents and you will get the funding. By now, we're in 2020, and our educational strategy is meant for 2035, and that talks a lot about personalized education, and it's a little bit like a fairy tale, but let's get there and see how we manage to do with that. What I wanted to say, these would be some of the points, and as you see, we had this question, how did we get there? Or usually we do get a lot of people coming from different countries and asking, what is your secret? So you have heard my secret. There is no secret. Educational outcomes is like a puzzle. Each and every tiny bit matters. So there have to be educational policies. There have to be schools who implement these policies. There have to be teachers and students. So basically the parents, the whole landscape, the whole infrastructure has to be there. What I wanted to say, that some of the points which I heard this morning, which are different from what you do and how we do. Would you like to hear about those? Yes. For example, we talk about equality, and it is extremely, extremely important, and it plays an extremely big thing. But what can we do? As educators, I guess we have to do something about it, because the parents will not give parents money and say, become richer and become, you cannot do that. So what you can do is you can try to make school do something that the parents haven't managed to do. And so there are some very simple things. For example, we give all children free school lunch. Imagine, as I heard from this morning, you have these 3 groups of kids, and let's say this group is number 1, that is number 2, and that is number 3. And so let's say it's lunchtime, you guys don't eat, but you go and you get your free lunch. And how many kids from that group would go to get their free lunch? They would say, oh, these are all looking, I'm not going. So, in other words, by dividing the students within the school, I think there is an inequality which is created as such. So, and that's what I've heard from people in different countries when I talk about it. So, make an experiment. Take a school and give them all free lunch for a while and see if it matters. The food we're in Portugal. Food is important, right? So we give students free breakfast, and because we give students free lunch, there are some kids who come to school to have lunch. And it's not because, we have taken pride in this school food. We have even made a TV program which says that the schools can compete what we cook and how we cook. So it's something to think about. Another thing, it's maybe not so important, but if you can see if kids feel good at their school, is if they take off their shoes and they walk in socks. That means they feel comfortable. So, and if you are not hungry and you feel comfortable at your school, that's probably decreasing this. Another factor which we don't do is we basically don't leave anybody, we don't retain, we don't have grade retention. I absolutely love this presentation about increasing the school compulsory education, because we are about to start that. But we would not have these variables because we don't have the grade retention. Because our policy is that if you notice that a kid has a problem, you have to help that kid. You have to do something about that. Because once it's the end of the year and the grades are bad, it's too late. So in that sense, we have all these support centers in each school that look at the children who are struggling, who need additional help, maybe psychologist, maybe speech therapist, whatever. And so they get help at earlier stage before school retention, because we have only, the grade retention, we have only about 3% of students who get, who stay for the second year. And right. I will not talk about Russians, right? Because we have the, well, if you're talking about, if I have to talk about what are we dealing now at the moment, because I mean, the PISA scores are the way they are. We don't talk about them very much. We think that's natural, that's happening, so we will start talking about them when they really start to fall. But we do have a thing which has been brought up by PISA, and because we have 20% of students are Russian speakers and 80% Estonian speakers, we have always seen in PISA that the Russian students lag behind. They are like a school year behind Estonians. Everything is the same, but they are behind. And because, you know, we have such a big neighbor, all the politicians up until now were very much afraid to do something about it. But with the current situation, there has been a decision made that all the Russians will be moved, or they will have to transfer into studying in Estonian. And so that's the big challenge at the moment. We don't know how it's going to impact our PISA scores in the future. But everybody, as you agree, like everybody in Portugal should speak Portuguese. We should have the same. So young people in Estonia should be taught that. And so that's the current, the biggest policy issue at the moment. And to answer Joao's question about why did we have the fall, well, we also had a COVID, and we had the school closures, and I have to say that most people who suffer, or the groups of students who suffered most, were students from disadvantaged families, and we see that group has increased. And so the low-performing students, the share has become bigger. It is only 15%, which is still half of what, for example, European Union has. And we have the share of top-performing students who have decreased. And I think one lesson which really showed that we can take away from COVID is the importance of teacher. Teacher in mathematics. If you had a good teacher, that's what we see also from the PISA data, the math scores were much higher. And one last tip before I take off, you know who else had higher mathematics scores? Those students who eat dinner with their parents. So again, we come back to eating. So eating is socializing, and it was really a message which really Estonian public enjoyed. Teenagers are young people who need to be talked to on a regular basis. So eat with your children, discuss life, and they will have higher math scores.